7
They got
hikers set out
smoked.
to the Kamar Daban mountain range. All but one would make it out alive.
Rip.
Yet, to this day, the circumstances surrounding this incident remain as one of the strangest mysteries in history.
Is that
What
his
happened
subtitles?
on this mountain? Where is everyone? And why is the Kamar Daban incident so incredibly unsettling?
Yeah, I'll watch this and then I'll probably head out.
Tonight's video is sponsored by... I'm just kidding. Siberia, August 1993.
Oh shit.
The river is freezing cold. Snow melts from the Kamar Daban mountain range, which looms overhead. Your kayak cuts through the water. You take in the fresh mountain air and the rugged landscape. It's a long overdue escape from the city. Out here, the only signs of civilization are power lines running over the mountains, which are easy enough to ignore. But out of nowhere, something catches your eye, and the peaceful atmosphere dissolves. There's someone standing on the far shore of the river, framed starkly against the trees.
I like this
It's a
animation.
teenage girl. She's waving her arms frantically, screaming for you to stop. From this distance, you can't quite make it out, but it looks almost like her jacket is stained with blood. You don't hesitate. You dive into the frigid water and swim to shore. And when you reach the girl, she collapses into your arms.
Sorry, why would you
She's
dive in the
delirious,
water?
Inconsolable. You
that
can
weird?
barely make out half of what she's saying through her sobs. She says she's scared, that she's all alone. You wonder why this girl's out in the wild by herself. But what she says next answers your question. It makes your blood run as cold as the river. Everyone else is dead.
Wait, episode 1?
A week earlier, August 2nd, 1993. Two hiking groups from Kazakhstan climb up a steep trail, away from the nearest town. They're heading into the wilds of southern Siberia's Kamar Daban mountain range. They're a school-sponsored hiking expedition, mostly in their teens and early 20s. One group is led by a man named Konstantin Kazantsev. The other is led by Lyudmila Korovina, an experienced hiker who has traveled these mountains before and who also happens to be the mother of one of Konstantin's student hikers. Lyudmila's group will be taking a high-altitude route across the mountain range before descending back down towards civilization. On the map, their route follows a rough arc across the mountains and back to a small lake called Lake Padavoy. They have 2 tents and will camp along the 40-kilometer route. While Lyudmila's group takes the summit, Konstantin will guide his group along a lower altitude valley route following the river. Despite the lower elevation, Konstantin's group's route is technically the more difficult of the two. The difficulty of the Russian alpine routes are measured on a scale of 1 to 6, with 1 being a beginner slope and 6 being near vertical, only to be attempted by experts. Lyudmila's route is rated a 3, which makes it a moderately difficult slope, around 35 to 45 degrees and icy. This requires confidence and sure footing, but it's not a grade that requires special equipment. Konstantin's route, by comparison, is a 4, which usually indicates some steep rocky sections at an incline of more than 55 degrees. The plan is for the two groups to begin and end the multi-day hike together, with several days in between, in which the two groups will separate and hike their respective routes. So when the trail forks, the valley group will take the low road, the summit group will take the high road, and on August 5th, they'll meet back up at the designated lake.
Why did they split?
While it's still summer, weather up in the mountains can be fickle in Siberia. with snowfall beginning as early as late August. Anticipating this, Lyudmila contacted local weather monitoring stations ahead of time. They told her the worst she could expect is a mild chance of wind and rain. Nothing to be too concerned about. Well, except for this.
I switched from due dates to due dates, and it made me go from
Nice.
weeks behind to weeks ahead of my deadlines. You see, I used to just...
I was locked
They
in.
were given a stark, cryptic warning as they departed a nearby town for the mountains.
This animation is
One
sick.
of the locals urged the hikers to be careful as wildlife in the area was behaving strangely, aggressively. No one could explain why, but something in the mountains was driving animals insane. And most recently, bears in the area had been witnessed throwing themselves in front of trains.
What the fuck?
Lyudmila and Konstantin's groups arrive at the fork in the trail. Lyudmila does a quick head count of her 6 students.
That was a
Sasha,
weird fucking
Dennis,
throw off.
Timur, Victoria, Tatiana, and Valentina. They're all here, all ready to go. The groups say goodbye for now and part ways.
I don't understand
Following
them
the map,
splitting.
Lyudmila guides her summit group along a river through a nearby pass. Before long, their group is walking uphill at a steady pace, through the trees and into the mountains. So far, the weather is favorable, warm summer air. Lyudmila's relieved that the weather forecast remains accurate, as there are some inexperienced hikers in her group. Lyudmila, aware that her group must keep up their strength, insists that they eat 4 times a day, including
know.
snacks during rest stops. She knows that some people think of her as hardened, a survivalist drill sergeant for her students, pushing them to their limits. But in her own mind, the safety of her hikers is always her first concern. They're making good time, and are able to summit the first ridge ahead of schedule. Even the
Why would
least
the groups-
experienced hikers, the 24-year-old Tatiana and the
Doesn't make sense to
16-year-old
me.
Victoria, managed to keep up. For both of them, it's their first grade 3 hike, a major milestone of any aspiring mountaineer. For now, the summit group is riding high, but they know a lot more terrain awaits them over the coming days. And
This motherfucker. Yo, that scared the fucking... Stop laughing. You mother bitch.
something they can't possibly know about,
I was locked in.
because they're miles from any remaining civilization. The winds and weather forecasts for Kamar Daban are shifting, and it's clear.
Someone take your
It's
credit
getting
card
worse.
away, bro.
August 4th, 2 days into the hike. Lyudmila's early
watching you.
confidence starts to wane.
Ugh.
The group reaches a treeless alpine zone, and here their fortunes turn. The weather sours. Heavy rain and wind whips and tears at the 7 hikers. Visibility is poor, and the temperature is dropping
Is this
rapidly.
the story about them
Their
eating each other?
progress slows
No,
to
that's
a crawl.
Donbass Pass. Never mind.
Lyudmila clutches onto her map like a lifeline.
Love the
making
scares. I
sure
hope you
that they
do,
stay
man.
on the proper path.
Because my heart
One
doesn't.
of the worst things that can happen in these
I'm
conditions
gonna have to up
is
it.
to stray
Just
off
kidding.
course
Just
and
kidding.
get lost. Lyudmila knows her students won't make the ridge before nightfall, and so she barks orders through the raging wind, instructing the group to make camp. The students spring to action and begin setting up their tents in an open, flat area about 2 miles.
Don't
above
you
the
love
tree
this
line.
animation though?
It's
It's sick.
exposed, but Lyudmila reasons that they had better play it safe and not push themselves. She urges her students to forage before it gets too
You can
dark.
do it? Oh.
Keeping their strength up
Okay.
is important, and there's no telling how long they're going to need to wait out the storm. Deposits of golden root in the area, and they hurriedly gather as much as they can. It's rich in minerals and nutrients, a perfect supplement to their cache of supplies.
I already know what to say anymore.
Once camp is set up, they cluster into 2 tents for the night.
Body took a
One for the boys
screenshot.
and one for the girls.
It did.
Lyudmila hunkers down
It's like-
with Tatiana, Victoria, and Valentina, trying their best to stay warm. Outside, the temperature plummets, and the rain turns to snow.
I wonder if there's an option to turn off like
does her best
people
not to
gifting
show
you.
it, but she's concerned. This isn't where they were supposed to camp for the night. It's too exposed. Also, for days, she's been growing increasingly concerned that her map of the area is inaccurate. At
Quit
the site,
watching. Oh, you got me again, man.
firewood waiting for them, but Lyudmila
I was
can't
watching
tell
it
how
all.
close
I
they are
didn't
to
see
it.
it.
She decides that it isn't worth the gamble to try and reach a wooden structure that may or may not actually be where her map claims it is.
Oops.
As of now, the students are shivering, but otherwise
I'm shivering.
seem in good spirits. Lyudmila's concern is growing. If the storm goes on for much longer,
This
things
feels
could
like
turn
a
sour very, very quickly. But
Sons
even
of the
still,
Forest.
she puts
Got
been
you.
on worse
Got you
hikes
that
than
time,
this,
didn't I?
and they all know it. It's her confidence and experience that gives courage to even the least experienced hiker, even if it's all for show. Meanwhile, far below, Constantine's Valley Group is
Can't make
having a
content on this
perfectly
channel no
pleasant
more.
time. At their lower elevation, there's no wind or snow, and they all get a restful night's sleep in relative comfort. On August 5th, they arrive at Lake Padavoy, right on schedule. The small lake is the agreed-upon rendezvous point where Constantine's Valley Group and Lyudmila's Summit Group are to link back up. But there was no sign of the Summit Group when Constantine arrives. So he tells the students to unshoulder their packs.
Did I
and
get
relax
you?
a while. They can wait. One of the members of this party is Natalia Kolovina, Lyudmila's 16-year-old daughter.
I don't even
She
know
takes
if
off
he's
her
here
backpack
anymore.
and helps the others set up their tents.
I'm trying to jump scare him.
She is that
Oh Lord Jesus Christ.
Lyudmila is a cautious person.
Oh,
Plus,
my
the
butt
Summit
puckered
Group
on
are
that.
Several inexperienced
Don't do that.
teenagers. She'd want to make sure her group is safe before moving on. When they're finished setting
Yeah,
up the
get
tents,
me.
she starts to wander along the
Shut
lake
up,
shore,
set
looking
up
at
jump
the
scares on your
Kamar
stream.
Mountains. From the lake, she doesn't have a direct view
my
of
butt
where her
puckered.
mother would be, but she notices something strange about the trees in the distance. They aren't
Appreciate
standing
you,
upright,
Doozy.
but are at an angle, like they've been smoothed over by an enormous comb. Combined with some scattered clouds around the peaks,
I can't
she
wait to
assumes
play
that
games
means
with you
there are
again.
pockets of bad weather
I wanna get
at
you
the
so
high
bad.
altitude. Lyudmila and her students might be getting some rain and wind, which is concerning,
Like the mine?
but nothing she hasn't handled before. Suddenly, however, Natalia stops in her tracks. A set of eyes are staring out at her from the foliage nearby, unblinking. It's a moose.
My favorite is the
Natalia's
mine.
mouth falls
When I
open
got you at the
and she
mine.
wants to call
Oh no,
them
there's a
everything.
mine. I was watching.
Mooses always steer clear
Cooked.
of hikers, but for some reason, this one isn't intimidated by their presence at all. In fact, there's an almost aggressive air to its posture. It's an unsettling encounter, and that's when she remembers what the people in town told her about the bears in the area.
How much repo did you play today?
Something isn't right, and the animals can feel it.
I'm out of
Slowly,
coins.
she
I don't
backs
trust
away.
you.
The moose boldly
I
stands its
really
ground.
don't.
Natalia returns to her group and tries to put the moose out
Got
of
to
her
level
mind.
4 myself. By
She
myself.
reminds
Ooh,
herself
nice.
that animals
I was thinking of
sometimes
playing
behave
Repo by
strangely,
myself
just
tonight.
like people. She tells her mother about this.
Out of coins, my dick.
A day passes.
Yeah. Out of coins, my fucking dick.
And concern sets in. There's a chance that the Summit Group isn't even on the mountain at all. Maybe when the weather got bad, they retraced their steps and went back out the way they hiked in. Or perhaps they hustled down to the rendezvous point early and continued on before the Valley Group arrived.
Thank you, Paige,
But then
for the
again,
calm.
Maybe not.
Now I'm out. Bullshit.
The uncertainty of it all weighs heavily on them.
Thank you, Paige, for the
especially
10 ice
Natalia.
cream cones. Thank you,
On the
Doozy, for
second
the
night, she dreams about her mother.
1, 2, 3, 4,
dream,
5, 6,
Lyudmila
7
speaks
game
directly to
controllers
her,
and the hearts.
telling
I
her
appreciate
that
you.
She can't get off the mountain. Natalia wakes in shock and has difficulty
And the finger
sleeping
hearts and the
rest of
roses.
night. Thoughts and fears about her mother's safety keep her awake.
No, we don't have to say W doozy.
She tries to tell herself that she's just being
My
silly.
last
that
7.
Her mother's group is so late.
Thank you,
simply
Doozy. I
because
appreciate you.
Mila is being cautious about the weather. But after 48 hours, these excuses ring more and more.
It's pretty good. Got a
At
breakfast sandwich
she
earlier.
tells Constantine about her dream. She pleads with him to go
It's
back
pretty
up the
good.
mountain and search. It is a grade 3 hike after all, and they don't need special gear. Constantine is sympathetic to her concerns, but reminds her
Yeah, it was
that they
pretty good.
only have enough supplies. Mila, only
I don't
to
know
run
if
out
you
of food
saw me
and
look,
put their own hikers
but
at
I
risk.
looked away at my window right
He's
before it hit,
reassuring,
and I was like,
firm, a good leader like her mother.
fucking...
And so she
No,
accepts
no, you
his
can't give
reasoning.
me every time. That's not
They're
fair.
skilled hikers, sure, but they're not a professional search and rescue team. Soon after,
Going to
they
Kermit.
reach their final destination, a small town on the shores of the enormous
Cooked.
Lake Baikal. But a cloud
Appreciate you,
hangs
Doozy.
over their arrival,
And Paige,
because
appreciate
there's
you
no
guys.
sign of Liu
W,
Mila's group
appreciate
here
it.
either.
Appreciate it. Yo, can we talk about stream
Natalia
yesterday?
is
You guys
beside
went
herself
fucking
now.
nuts with the
They
fucking
came together. The
dinos.
two
That was
groups were
insane.
supposed to lead together. Lyudmila even has train tickets for the whole group. Natalia doesn't know what to do. She's always looked up to her mother for strength, confidence, and this
Yeah, it was
uncertain
fun.
danger
I enjoyed
has
it.
no easy solution. Constantine's eyes return to the high peaks.
I'll have to do
looming
it
in the
again.
distance. He begins to fear that he's
I
made
bet
a
you were,
terrible
man.
decision
I think
that
everyone
will
was
haunt
having
him for
fun.
the rest of his life. What on earth, he wonders, is happening
It's pretty good.
up on the mountain?
Yeah, he really did. He like came in and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know those were making you fall," and then
The
sent
night of
42.9.
August 4th.
42.9. It's not even fucking English. Oh crap. It's not even English, my
begins to
dude.
shift on the mountain at all.
Then he's like, "Oh, sorry, I
When the
didn't know
weather
that
got
made you
bad,
fall," and
they
then sent like
retraced their steps and went back out
300.
the way they hiked in.
It's insane.
Or perhaps they hustled down to the rendezvous point early and continued on before the valley group arrived. But then again, maybe not. The uncertainty of it all weighs heavily on them, especially Natalia. On the second night, she dreams about her mother.
Have you broke 1,000
In
yet?
this dream, Lyudmila speaks directly to her, telling her that she can't get off the mountain.
It's actually insane.
Natalia wakes in shock and has difficulty sleeping the rest of the night. Thoughts and
It
fears
is, yeah,
about
it
her
can be a
mother's
lot of
safety
fun.
keep her awake. She tries to tell herself that she's just being silly, that her mother's group is so late simply because Lyudmila is being cautious about the weather.
Once you get your PC, you should
But
definitely
after
stream on
48
TikTok, Dre.
hours,
It'll
these
be fun.
excuses ring more and more hollow. At breakfast, she tells Constantine about her dream. She pleads with him to go back up the mountain and search. It is a grade 3 hike after all, and they don't need special gear. Constantine is sympathetic to her concerns, but reminds her that they only have enough supplies for their full trek. They don't want to
And if you,
double
like,
back
have
in search
questions,
of
just
Lyudmila,
come ask.
only to run
can
out of
help you.
food and put their own hikers at risk. He's reassuring, firm, a good leader like her mother, and so she accepts his reasoning. They're skilled hikers, sure, but they're not a professional search and rescue team. Soon after, they reach their final destination, a small town on the shores of the enormous Lake Baikal. But a cloud hangs over their arrival, because there's no sign of Lyudmila's group here either. Natalia is beside herself now. They came together. The two groups were supposed to lead together. Lyudmila even has train tickets for the whole group. Natalia doesn't know what to do. She's always looked up to her mother for strength, confidence, and this uncertain danger has no easy solution. Constantine's eyes return to the high peaks looming in the distance. He begins to fear that he's made a terrible decision that'll haunt him for the rest of his life. What on earth, he wonders, is happening up on the mountain?
It's your boy, yeah.
The night of August 4th.
Just got chills.
On the peak, Lyudmila and her students aren't getting any sleep. In the early morning hours,
Watch the human
one of the students
centipede.
from the boys'
No,
tent
thanks.
trudges over to
That's sick.
Lyudmila's tent. It's Sasha, an inexperienced 23-year-old hiker. He's like a surrogate son to Lyudmila. He tells her that the boys are uncomfortable. The wind and the cold are
Those
too
type of
much to
movies I
bear.
do not like, Dre.
At this elevation,
They, like,
there's
bug
no
me.
tree
Like,
cover, no
they're so
protection
annoying.
from the storm. Their tents are no match for the relentless wind. At 4 in the morning, the tethers snap.
Like that and the one with the clown. I don't
Everyone
like them.
scrambles out into the bitter cold, struggling to resecure their shelters. Snow seeps into the tents, soaking through the sleeping bags. It's a miserable, punishing night. Finally, at dawn, Lyudmila tells them it's time to go. They must descend immediately. After a quick breakfast of canned stew, the group begins hiking back down the mountain to the south. While they're still roughly following their planned route, they've abandoned any attempt to summit the peak and instead seek protection from the severe weather 2.5 miles below where there's tree cover. The heavy winds continue, making it difficult to progress. Visibility is dismal. Then suddenly, at about 11 a.m., Sasha falls down. The other hikers help him to his feet, but soon he collapses again. He's starting to fall behind. Lyudmila hangs back to help him, telling the other hikers to go ahead. She and Sasha will catch up. The 5 other students comply, grabbing onto each other to stabilize themselves against the wind. Like a phalanx of Roman soldiers, they make their way slowly and deliberately down the mountain. They're making progress, and the tree line is beginning to feel achievable. But soon, they hear Lyudmila's voice shouting from behind them. She's screaming for help. Leaving the phalanx, 17-year-old Valentina rushes back to help their leader. She arrives to find Lyudmila crouched by Sasha's body, despondent. The young man who had been complaining of cold mere hours before isn't moving. Valentina looks closer, and she sees that his eyes are vacant, staring off into the distance. Sasha is dead. Overcome with shock, Valentina is momentarily unable to speak or breathe. It feels like she's stumbled into a nightmare. But the nightmare is only beginning, because a moment later, Lyudmila collapses as well.
Jesus.
The other students see her go down, and panic sweeps through the group like a wildfire. The phalanx breaks. Valentina looks on in terror as chaos breaks out. Everyone is screaming, flailing, but not because they're afraid. They're all in pain. Valentina's fellow students are bleeding from their ears, eyes, and noses.
What the fuck?
They're foaming at the mouth. This
What?
doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. A couple of them are tearing at their clothes
Tusk.
frantically, madly. Valentina
Was
has never
Tusk.
seen anything like it. And suddenly, to her shock, more of them begin to collapse to the ground, one by one. Valentina tries to pull Victoria to her feet.
This
only
took
for
an
the
actual
girl to
fucking
rapidly
weird-ass
bite
turn all of a sudden.
Valentina's hand. She tries again, pulling the convulsing girl down the mountain with her. They're only able to make it a few more steps before Victoria fights free again, but she doesn't go far. She falls to the ground and stops moving. Valentina keeps going. Maybe if she makes it to a nearby cluster of rocks, maybe then she'll be safe from this madness. But when she
I'm not
nears
watching
the
that,
rocks,
Dre.
she halts, stopped in her
Tusk.
tracks by yet another terrifying sight.
Killer Unicorn
One
I
of the
might
other
watch though.
girls, Tatiana, is already at the rocks and is bashing her own head against them over and over again.
What the fuck is happening in
A
this
curtain
fucking
of
shit?
blood obscures her face from view. Tatiana keeps smashing her head into these rocks until eventually she stops moving.
What the fuck?
Valentina is frozen, paralyzed by complete shock and panic. In the span of minutes, and with zero warning, her entire group has dropped dead. Suddenly, a hand shoves Valentina, shaking her out of her stupor. Someone is still alive. It's one of the boys, Dennis. He's on his hands and knees, bleeding from the ears and mouth. Yet he's able to muster up enough energy to give her one single command. Run.
What the fuck is happening?
This shocks Valentina into action. She bolts downhill, making for the tree line. Behind her, Dennis tries to crawl after her, but he has no strength. She glances over her shoulder to make sure he's following, yet he isn't. He's lying face flat in the snow, completely immobile. By now, it's just Valentina. Overcome with fear and a burning desire to survive, she advances downhill through the swirling wind and blinding snow, stumbling, crawling, before, at last, she finally reaches the tree line and a shelter from the wind. She digs a sleeping bag out of her backpack and crawls inside. She huddles into a ball for warmth before she passes out.
That was so weird. I was like, okay, this is kind of chill.
A day later, the
And then
weather
all of a sudden it
subsides.
just fucking skyrocketed.
Valentina wakes up on August 6th, and it's quiet. No screams, no howling wind. Just the gentle rustling of trees and the drip, drip, drip of the melting snow. She cautiously emerges from her sleeping bag. The sun is out. Even though she slept for almost 24 hours, she doesn't feel rested. The horrific sights from the day before are clear in her mind's eye. She wishes that she could dismiss it as a nightmare, something caused by a lack of sleep or exhaustion, but she knows the truth.
Wait, she brought her tent
She
with her?
can't kid herself. She's alone. Valentina slowly starts to trudge back up the mountain. She's gotta see her fellow hikers. She needs to have some sense of what happened. Before too long, the bodies come into sight. A cluster of 4 of them by the rocks, and 2 farther up the slope. They're all still and silent. Steeling herself, Valentina walks from body to body. She can't do anything for them now besides close their eyes. She passes Tatiana, the 24-year-old secretary, the one who smashed her face into the rocks not long ago. She passes the small body of Timur, who was only 15 years old. He was the youngest of the group. Victoria was also there. Valentina couldn't help but feel some kinship with the other girl. Only a year younger than her, she had been so eager to hike that she had her parents persuade Lyudmila to let her join them, even though she was an inexperienced hiker. It breaks her heart to see Dennis, the boy who saved her, lying on the slope. If he hadn't told her to run, she might have died there as well. Once she's closed all their eyes, Valentina does her best to cover the bodies with one of the tents. She gathers whatever supplies she can from their packs, food, Lyudmila's map, and a compass. But as it turns out, the map and compass are of little use, because Valentina is lost. The snowdrifts make it impossible to follow the path that Lyudmila planned for them. They were less than halfway through the 40-kilometer route, and Valentina doesn't want to risk hiking over the snowy peak alone. Instead, she decides to head back down in the general direction their group climbed up. She needs to get to a more reasonable altitude as soon as possible. As she continues her descent, a promising sight greets her eyes. Thin cables running above the treetops, power lines which run to the nearby peak of the mountain. Making her choice, she continues walking, her eye on the power lines, trusting that they'll show her a way to safety. After all, when there's power, there's bound to be civilization. Even though it's entirely downhill, it's an arduous journey. Her supplies wear thin fast. She eats a dried golden root, foraged by the group several days before. It's rich in minerals and keeps her going. Her home feels impossibly far away in these desolate mountains, yet one thought pushes Valentina forward. The thought of her home back in Kazakhstan. The thought of her family who had trusted Lyudmila to bring their little Valia home safe. Valentina has to survive to see them again. She travels from tower to tower, pausing to catch her breath, but never stopping. She treks for 4 days, growing delirious, and one fortunate night, she finds a winter hut unlocked. She collapses inside, grateful for the shelter. But she's on her feet the next day, determined not to die alone in the mountains. She doesn't notice when she catches a cold, but she can feel a fever eating away at her and has to pause every so often to allow herself to cough. At lower altitude, there's less snow, but aside from the cabin, she hasn't seen any civilization, not a town or even an outpost. Because of this, doubts begin to eat away at her. Perhaps she should have tried to retrace her group's footsteps instead, back to the town they started out from. Finally, Valentina reaches a river. This gives her some hope. Many of the rivers in the area flow from Lake Baikal, which is where they started their trip. She follows the rocky shore, heading upstream in hopes that someone will see her. And eventually, by the grace of God, someone does. On August 9th, 1993, tourists from Ukraine cross her path. One of the tourists, Alexander Kvitnitsky, sees her and swims to her side. Valentina has done the impossible. She survived. When she's rescued, she's incoherent and is only able to give local police a scattered account of what happened.
Yeah, I'd love to know what
Nevertheless,
happened.
while Valentina is sent home to her family, a search effort's mounted to find the bodies of her companions. And what rescuers find defies explanation, even to this day.
If they're gone, I'm gonna tweak out. Or the
August
bodies are gone?
24th, 1993. Helicopters fly over the peak of the Kamar Daban mountain range. They've been searching for weeks, trying to locate the missing group of hikers from Kazakhstan. Finally, someone sees something and the helicopters descend. They found the summit group's final campsite, and with this, the bodies. The snow around the peak has melted, revealing a gruesome sight. After 19 days of exposure to the elements, their bodies are in poor condition. The tent that Valentina draped over them couldn't prevent them from rotting. None of the bodies have eyes, and worms writhe in their empty sockets.
Gross.
With increased visibility on the mountain, rescuers are able to see that the hikers died only a few hundred feet short of Titran's peak. A wooden tower is indeed there, which would have protected them against the elements far better than a flimsy tent on the side of a mountain. Why Lyudmila hadn't fought to get there safely puzzles the search party, even as they gather the unfortunate victims. More puzzling is the fact that they find only a single can of stew by the campsite. Nothing else, no other food, not even a candy bar wrapper. It's this evidence that seems to indicate that this group was underfed and needlessly exposed to the elements. They zip up the bodies.
Donzo
in bags
got their
and load them onto
eyes.
the helicopter.
That's
The smell
crazy.
is unbearable as they take them back to be autopsied. The bodies are found to be protein deficient and malnourished. The leader of the search party, Yuri Golias, has seen enough. The can of stew, the hazardous placement of their campsite. To him, it's no mystery what happened to these kids on the mountain.
What are you
And
talking
he
about?
knows exactly who to
What?
blame. Lyudmila herself. Yuri is familiar with Lyudmila and has long believed that she mistreated her students. Based on his previous encounters with her, Yuri claims that she often pushed her teenage students to their limits, including underfeeding them and not providing them with proper clothing for the elements. In Yuri's mind, there's no doubt that Lyudmila's poor leadership contributed to the deaths of the group at Kamar Daban. Even
Very
further, he
confused.
claimed that he wouldn't put it past Lyudmila to choose a poor campsite in order to, quote, toughen her students up. But even still, not everyone agrees with Yuri's assertion. Valentina, after years of silence in the wake of this horrific event, spoke out in support of Lyudmila Korovina. She claims that the summit group was well fed and cared for throughout the hike, and that Lyudmila knew that they were hikers of varying experience, and so she planned for a diet of 2,400 calories a day. The official cause of death for the 5 students is listed as hypothermia. As for Lyudmila herself, it's believed that she died of a heart attack upon seeing Sasha die before her eyes. But the details of the event itself defy such an easy conclusion.
I'm so confused.
For
guys.
instance, why was Valentina able to survive if all of them were in the same state of malnutrition and exposure? How was she, a 17-year-old girl, able to outlast an experienced mountaineer and her own peers? And most of all, why did their deaths happen so suddenly and within such close proximity? Satisfactory answers, unfortunately, remain elusive.
God damn it, I got more
However,
questions than
as it
answers.
stands, the facts are these. 6 healthy individuals died very suddenly in close proximity to each other. All of them displayed strange, unexplained symptoms in their final moments that included self-harm, bleeding from the ears, eyes, or throat, and sudden, debilitating pain. All of these details come from Valentina herself, who describes the experience like a horror movie. Now, hypothermia could explain some of the symptoms Valentina noticed, such as the attempts to frantically disrobe. This is a phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing.
Yeah.
In extreme cold weather, a person's blood vessels constrict to save heat. As hypothermia sets in, the constriction of these blood vessels fails, causing warm blood to flood back into the extremities, making someone feel like they're overheating, even as they literally freeze to death. People in this state frequently tear off items of clothing, only hastening their own demise.
I'm so
But
confused.
smashing your own head into rocks, sudden, inexplicable bleeding, neither of these are symptoms of hypothermia, nor should they be contagious in the way that they seem to be among Lyudmila's group. Another theory is that these hikers suffered from altitude sickness, which can trigger any number of adverse effects in the human body. Among these can be pulmonary edema, a buildup of fluid in the lungs, which can trigger heart palpitations and bloody coughing. Perhaps it could have been something they ate or drank. The strange behavior that Valentina witnessed could have been caused by a poisonous plant that the others had consumed and she had fortunately avoided. Or perhaps contaminated water was the culprit. Lake Baikal is known for high levels of contamination, and if hikers filled their water bottles from one of its rivers, they could have poisoned themselves.
I'm worried about the eyes, because they don't have
In
eyes.
the pursuit of truth, curious researchers have turned away from the direct events of the hike and towards increasingly elaborate conspiracy theories. The most dramatic of these is that these hikers were unwitting participants.
They were bleeding
in a
from the
Russian weapons
eyes.
Test. Victims of some nerve agent that got unleashed under the cover
That's what I was
of the storm.
thinking, but
Novichok chemicals, for instance, were developed in the late stages of the Cold War by the Soviet Union.
I don't know.
Phosphorus-based
I have so
and
many
designed
questions,
to be
right?
undetectable. They cause disorientation as well as foaming at the mouth and can be administered in aerosol form. A similar, if slightly outlandish theory assumes that the sudden hysteria and death among the group was caused by infrasound. The term infrasound refers to low-level frequencies that can occur naturally, emitted by geophysical phenomena. These sounds, while not audible to the human ear, can be felt by the cochlea in the inner ear, causing extreme discomfort. In certain extreme conditions, infrasound has been known to cause sudden sickness and even death. At certain frequencies,
I guess it could be
it's
gross,
theorized that
like
these sounds
the
can
eyes,
cause
but-
the internal organs of someone to vibrate, causing internal damage.
well, you just got back.
But even still, what could have caused these sounds? Why would they have affected only 6 of the 7 hikers? Every single theory inevitably runs up against the central question of this entire incident.
Just a story about some
How
hikers
did
dying.
Valentina survive?
It's just weird little story.
When a
That's all.
journalist asks her how she managed to live when the others didn't, her answer
I have so many
is simple.
questions.
She was in very good physical condition. She lived on a farm her whole life and was used to high altitude and strenuous exercise. But this description could apply to any one of the hikers present. Even the youngest member of the group, 15-year-old Timur was an experienced outdoorsman. The only hiker
She's the
with
chosen
questionable
one.
experience was the 16-year-old Victoria, who had previously suffered from fatigue on easy hikes. There just has to be something missing, some detail that got lost in the noise of Valentina's trauma and the punishing weather. But if there is a key that helps us understand what happened at Kamar Daban, it seems, unfortunately, to have been irretrievably lost. Like the dead, the mountain keeps its secrets. And if there's one thing to take away from all of this, their campsite will forever hold a mystery.
It's just so weird. Because they like randomly start bleeding from the fucking ears, their mouth,
Late
their
Nights with
eyes.
Nexpo is created and hosted by
And then like one of them was hitting their head on a fucking rock and killed themselves. Like radiation in the mountains. I was just trying to see if but then why did the one girl not get it? Hey, Mr. Ballin. Sorry, I was just looking. See if there's like I don't know. I have so many questions and like I don't fucking know, man.